Cathy Engelbert knew the storm is coming. Negotiations between the WNBA and its players have been tense for months. But when Adam Silver publicly dismissed the idea of equal revenue sharing, everything cracked wide open. His comments hit a nerve-sparking outrage among players already frustrated with low pay and growing league profit. They felt shut out of the WNBA. Sharp social media responses only amplified the chaos, dragging private negotiations into the public arena and forcing the league's leadership into damage control. Behind the scenes, the tension wasn't just about money, it was about power. Who truly controls the league's future? The players driving the momentum, or the NBA executives funding its survival? Now, with the CBA deadly line looming on October 31st, the league stands on the edge. A disaster. If you're here for the real story and not filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe. Engelbert's leadership is being tested like never before. Caught between a piece and the players and managing the financial realities Silver keeps highlighting. Loss is nearing $40 million annually and limited operational control. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark's influence looms over all her rise, exposing both the potential and fragility of the league's growth. Her absence during injury proved how dependent WNBA has become on her star power. Every decision made in these final days will determine not only whether the league avoid a lockout, but whether it can truly sustain itself beyond her influence. The WNBA is on the brink of collapse. At the center of it all, a commissioner suspended, a broken revenue system, a rising star turn, bargaining chip, and a looming October 31st deadline that could decide the league's future. Yes, you heard that right. WNBA Commissioner Cathy Engelbert is suspended. The fallout from the collective bargaining agreement negotiations has exploded into a full-blown leadership crisis, with lead executives scrambling to control the damage as players, owners, and NBA watch the chaos unfold. It all started with one question: who really controls the WNBA? Because right now the answer is clear. The WNBA only owns 42% of itself. The rest is under NBA oversight, and financial imbalance is driving a wedge to the league's core. At the heart of the tension, revenue split that's become the lightning rod for player outrage. Currently, WNBA players receive just 9% of league revenue. Compare that to the NBA is roughly 50%. And you start to see why the players' union, the WNBA, is fighting back, demanding a bigger piece of the pie. They say they deserve it, especially now. Why now? Because of Caitlin Clark. Clark has become the WNBA most valuable asset, an instant ratings magnet, emerged machine, a ticket-selling force. Her presence alone has shifted the media narrative around the league, bringing in new fans, sponsors, and record-breaking viewership. But ironically, the same player driving the WNBA growth is now also exposing its biggest weakness. When Clark was injured, the numbers dropped fast. Ratings did, ticket interest cooled, sponsor attention scattered. Her absence made it brutally clear this league is currently riding on one player's momentum. And that's a dangerous place to be. Still, players point arise as proof that the league and generate value, that they're not, as employees, had a product to draw. The reason any of this works. So, and Adam Silver, commissioner, the NBA, league's biggest financial backer, publicly dismissed the idea of sharing revenue equally with WNBA players that set everything off. Silver said, with the lead in one here, there's just not enough money to go around. He emphasized that WNBA is losing around $40 million a year, and that while players will see some pay increases, a 50-50 split like the NBA players get is simply unrealistic. He even said the players' rising value was clear, but insists the economics don't support the union's demands. The reaction instance, a WNBA clapped back, not with press releases, but with thinly veiled sarcastic Instagram stories calling out Silver without naming names. It was petty, it was public, And it was exactly the kind of thing that drags internal conflict out into the open. Now both sides are entrenched. The players feel underpaid, underappreciated, and overused. The league's leadership is trying to manage financial reality while fending off accusations of greed and mismanagement, and ENB is still funding most of the operation, is keeping a firm grip on her purse strings. This all exploded just as a deadline approached, with October 31st fast approaching. The league needed to show signs of stability. Instead, it got infighting messy. And Commissioner suspension. Cathy Engelbert is now benched amid accusations of losing control, the narrative failing to manage player expectations, and misaligning with the NBA financial strategies. That suspension send a message: the WNBA isn't calling all the shots, and if there was ever doubt about where the real power lies, it ended there. This is a classic power struggle. Players want a bigger cut. The WNBA once leveraged the league's commissioner, stuck between two walls, one bill by NBA money, the other by growing player influence, and caught in the middle. Caitlin Clark unintentionally few and whole thing. Despite being too popular, too effective, and too essential, her rise has been a blessing and a curse. On one hand, she's proven that women's basketball can drive massive attention and generate commercial interest. On the other, her success has made the league's dependence on a single star painfully obvious. Without structural change, that kind of growth isn't sustainable, and yet the players are now expected to carry the weight of league momentum while being asked to accept single-digit revenue shares, all while their own commissioner has been removed from power in the middle of negotiations. Let's be honest, that's not just dysfunction, that's a full-blown crisis. The league's financial model is broken. It's not just that the WNBA doesn't to a profit, is that is built on NBA subsidies, operates with limited control, and is now face and demand can't meet without fundamentally restructuring how it works. Silver knows this. Is cautious tone isn't about disrespecting players, it's about avoiding a catastrophic lockout. If the league agrees that terms can afford it, collapse says, but if it doesn't agree, the players could walk. Either way, the entire ecosystem is one misstep away from imploding, and fans, they're confused from the outside. The WNBA looks like it's thriving, attendances up, merges flying off shelves, ratings have spiked. But behind the scenes, the numbers don't support the growth narrative. The money just isn't there, not yet. That's what makes this moment so volatile. The league is finally getting the attention it's worked decade for, but now that the spotlight on the cracks are showing, the CBB negotiations are pulling back the curtain on just how fragile that access really is. Social media hasn't helped the WPA. Decision to use Instagram posts to call out leadership publicly made things worse. It added fuel to an already messy fire and made it harder for either side to retreat or compromise without looking weak. It turned the go-she Asian into spectacle, and in doing so, it may have backed both sides into a corner. Because now it's not just about money, it's about pride, about optics, about power. Engelbert's suspension is a clear signal that the league is trying to save face, that it needs to regain control, that someone has it take the fall for the math. Whether or not that person was one who caused it. Silver, meanwhile, is playing the long game. He's managing the NBA role carefully, trying not overstep, but also making sure the WNBA doesn't commit the promises it can't deliver. He's already made it clear the NBA won't, on a system that isn't financially viable, and of the player strike, that a disaster for everyone involved. So what happens now? There are only days left before the October 31st deadline. If a new agreement is reached, a lockout becomes not as possible. It becomes likely. And if that happens, the WNBA future is up in the air. Sponsorships could vanish, TV deals could fall apart, fan could walk away, and all the momentum Caitlin Clark helped create gone. It all comes down to whether both sides can step back from the edge, can play years, accept a slower, more incremental revenue increase. Can a league build a path to sustainability without overpromising? Can leadership survive another public disaster? Right now, none of that is clear. What is clear is that the WNBA is in a moment of reckoning. The fight over revenue as pull back the mask on a deeper issue. This league was built on shaky ground, is survived of, and be a support lean on star power, and now find itself stuck between ambition and reality. The future depends on whether that gap can be closed. So what you think, should the WNBA players get bigger, cut now, or wait until the league turned a profit? Was as Adam Silver right to shut down revenue sharing as Caitlin Clark started being used as leverage, or that exposing the league's flaws? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Like, if you think the WNBA needs serious change, share you're following every twist in these negotiations, and make sure subscribe, because stories is eating started in October 31st could change everything. The clock is ticking. October 31st isn't just a deadline anymore. It's a warning, a siren blaring of the entire WNBA ecosystem, signaling that everything the league is built, everything it's worked toward, everything hopes to become could come undone in a matter of days. This isn't just about a CBS, it's about whether the WNBA can survive its own growing pains, and the truth, no. Unsafe, not the players, not the owners, not even the fans. The league's leadership vacuum says it all. Cathy Engelbert, once positioned as progressive player-focused commissioner to guide the league into a new era, has been suspended. And not quietly. This wasn't swept under the rug. It was loud, messy, and very public, a clear message that the WNBA is no longer in control of its own narrative. If it ever was behind closed doors, the NBA is watching everything. Their patience is running thin. Their funding aleta continues to bleed money year after year, to the tune of $40 million in annual losses. That's not a small budget shortfall. That a foundational collapse waiting to happen. And when you combine that with player demands for a 50-50 revenue split, you just stand off. No one was fully prepared for. Let's be blunt, the WNBA is built on a house of borrowed money and media goodwill. The visibility boom brought by Caitlin Clark is real, yes. But also shallow. Ratings are up, attendances up, sponsorships are up, profits nowhere be seen. The structure is still brittle, the finances are still broken. And that's what Adam Silver is holding the line on. He's not just playing defensive and be a wallet, he's looking to run numbers. And asking, how can we share revenue that doesn't exist? To players, that sounds dismissive, patronizing, insulting. To league executive is a chilling reality check. And yet, do all of this, the players keep pushing. The WNBA isn't backing down because they know they're more valuable than ever. They're looking at Caitlin Clark's MP pact and saying, look what happens when the league actually gets attention. Look what we could be. They're not wrong. Caitlin Clark's rise has shown everyone was possible. Her name alone can fill arenas and break TV records. She's been on the court for months, but off the court, she's been carrying the league on her back way. Without asking to, without realizing how much power she suddenly holds. And that's the core irony here. Clark didn't choose to be the center of the storm, but her presence has become the leverage both sides are using. The WNBA pointing to her success and saying, this is why we deserve more. Adam Silver is pointing to Reese Engelbert's success and saying, this is why we can't afford give more. If one star's making as much of difference, what happens? She goes down again. What happens when the growth depends on one person and she's unavailable? Well, we already saw what happens when Clark was injured. Everything dipped. Not just her scoring average. Is everything. Ticket sales, merchandise, engagement, coverage. Her absence proved something no one wanted to admit. The league's growth wasn't institutional, it was personal, it was Clark. And when that kind of pressure is placed on a single player, the system isn't stable, it's fragile. And now their fragility is playing out on the biggest stage the league has ever had. Silver's refusal to budge on revenue sharing isn't just about numbers, it's about sustainability. He's already said that player compensation will go up, but he's drawn a hard line at parity with NBA. Revenue shares. Why? Because the NBA, the revenue is massive, a global empire. The WNBA, a league still trying to prove it can stand on its own. But here's where things get dangerous. The WNBA isn't just fighting for percentages, they're fighting for dignity, for respect, for the belief that their labor matters beyond just what it earns on a spreadsheet, and when you dismiss those demands you don't just risk a failed negotiation, you risk a full-scale revolt, and right now, that's where this is headed. The players have made it clear it is deal and fixed by the deadline. They're prepared to sit the league is prepared to call their bluff, and WNBA watching carefully, unwilling to bankroll a system that doesn't involve. So what happens if we get October 31st? And there's no agreement is not just a lockout at the collapsed sponsorship for pullback. TV partners will start to reconsider the momentum that Caitlin Clark generated. Gone. And not gradually, instantly. All of that visibility, all of that growth, all that hype, it only works if there's a product on the court, if there are games being played, if there's something for fans to engage with. Without that, the WNBA doesn't just pause, it recedes. And the worst part ever. One knows it. That's what makes this so unbearable to watch. Both sides understand what's at stake. Both sides know the risks, and yet here we are, days in the deadline with no resolution in sight, and the league's commissioner suspended in the middle of negotiations. There's no adult in the room, no clear voice guiding this process. Just a messy public war between players who know their worth and executives who know their limits. The fans caught in the middle watch your league they support for decades teeter on the edge, wondering how got as bad this fast, and all circles back to the same problem. The league was never built to grow this fast. Caitlin Clark accelerated the timeline. Her stardom created a wave of opportunity that the league wasn't structurally ready for, and now, as the players demand their rightful share, the system is cracking under pressure. But this moment was always coming, because when you build a professional league with our financial independence, without full control of an operations, without a clear growth strategy beyond NBA subsidies, there's only so long you can avoid this kind of reckoning. It just so happens that the reckoning came right when the spotlight finally showed up, and now everyone's watching, not just fan but your sponsors, investors, networks, future players. They're all went to see how this ends, whether the WNBA will evolve or implode. So what needs to happen? Leadership, transparency, a long-term plan that actually supports sustainable growth. That means finding a middle ground, one that acknowledges player value without bankrupting the league, one that recognizes the reality the financials were insulting the players who keep the league alive. But that takes more than public statements and Instagram posts. It takes trust, and right now there's none left. This isn't just about me, honey, it's about control. It's about who gets to shape the future of women's basketball. Is it the players who made the league matter, the executives managing the books, or the NBA random checks? That's the real fight. And unless they figure out fast, there might not be illegal. The fight over the silence from legally or ship is deafening as October 31st barrels toward them. There's no commission in the chair, no unified front, and no clear plan. And while the league scrambled behind closed doors, the players are doing something they've never done this loudly, calling the bluff. The WNBA isn't just asking for a fair shake, they're forced in the issue. They've taken their fight public, exposed imbalance, and reminded everyone just how fragile the league's foundation really is. There's no more polite negotiation, no more waiting for progress. Now the standoff. And with the commission suspended, it's not just a bad look, it's an operational meltdown. Cathy Engelbert's ousting during the most critical phase and negotiations sends one message loud and clear: the people suppose we run in the league don't actually have the power to fix it. The NBA does, which means every decision as restore, every dollar, every delay is being filtered to Adam Silver, his desk. And Silver, he's not flinching. He's made it clear the WNBA is not the NBA. It doesn't have the same money, the same reach, or the same margin for error. When he talked about sustainability, what he's really saying is you don't get 50% of a pie that doesn't exist. From a purely financial standpoint, he's not wrong. The league is losing tens of millions annually. It relies on outside funding, and it controls less than half of itself. That's not a business, it's a project, one that so far only works because the NBA let it work. But from the players' side, this sounds like a rigged system, they're told help grow the game to promote to be the product, and the marketing there as to be role models, media savvy, accessible, and endlessly available. And now, the attention is finally here. They're told they're still too early for a fair deal. It's exhausting. And they're over it. Players like Breanna Stewart, O. Wilson, and Nafisa Collier have been vocal for years, calling out inequity and the gap between value and compensation. But wasn't until Caitlin Clark burst onto the scene, dragging national media, new fans with her, that the spotlight was bright enough to make people listen. And now that it's here, everyone wants something from her. The league wants to use her popularity to sell the brand. The players want her stardom to power their bargaining position. The media wants her as the next phase of movement. And Clark, she's do it. She always does. Basketball head down, focus up. But her rise has made her the unintentional centerpiece of financial war she didn't start and probably doesn't want to be. And still, her impact is undeniable. Her games have shattered attendance records. TV ratings jumped the minute she ended the conversation. She has a halo effect that benefits everyone, even her competitors. And that's exactly why her injury was such a wake-up call. Because when she wasn't on the court, the league felt it. The hype deflated, the media coverage slowed, the numbers told the story. Without Clark, the machine doesn't run as fast or as far. Is not our fault, but it's a problem the league and built to withstand the loss of a single player. And yet, it's try convince players that now isn't the time to invest more in their futures, that they still need to wait, that they still need to grow the game before getting paid for it. That's not a strategy, the stall tactic. And the players know it. They've been patient, they've been loyal, they've worked within system. But this time they are ready to walk, now because they want to steroid the lead, but because they're tired of carrying it without a fair return. So here we are, a suspended commissioner, a divided leadership, looming lockout, and the fate of the entire league hanging on a CB that nobody can say.